It was the end of another day, and I was glad it was over. The day had passed so slow, I was ready for anything different. Answering phone calls, placing reservations, and ensuring customers were happy was not my dream job. Not at all. See, I wanted to explore the mysteries of the universe and understand how things tick. I am one of those elusive graduated physics majors. Try to find one of us and you will most likely have to search deep inside apartment rooms, or in my case a room in a house where I rented part of it, where we sit at computers looking up interesting facts on how light diffraction works through double-slit experiments. That just excites everyone, doesn't it? When we are not doing that, you can usually find us geeking out on something, like playing video games through all hours of the night or finishing up the newest sci-fi/fantasy book/TV show/movie series that we have found. All the non-geeks are envious of our 20-hour marathons of any show that has star in it or someone who can do magic. And when we are not doing that, well, we got to eat, so we got to work sometime. Now if my job had been about physics, where I could employ my vast array of otherwise useless knowledge, then I might have been excited to be there. But when you spend 8 hours answering phone calls with people complaining that the hotel room was on the 5th floor when they wanted the 3rd, or that it was not on the sunny side of the hotel, the day can drag on. So at the end of a typical day I was headed home. The last caller, customer, you have to call them that or the managers get upset. It's all about the customer, as they say, took an hour to satisfy. The hotel was not what he expected, so he wanted a refund. The local manager was not doing things satisfactory to his liking, so he had to call the central office. He had been mad and not afraid to take it out on me. After all, he knew he was the customer and we had to bend over backwards for him. So at the end of the hour I was tired and weary and really not wanting to go back tomorrow, but I knew I had to. I was trying to save up enough money to have a bit of elbow room. My roommate owned the place I stayed and was nice about rent, but I still needed to pay it and I still needed to eat as well and buy video games, board games, and other fascinating stuff when money permitted. It was tough to save up sometimes. I remember thinking that if I never went back to that job it would be too soon. I also knew that with how automated the internet was becoming, I should feel glad I even had a job like this. I had only been there 6 months, but they had not hired anyone new since me. The people who left were not replaced. And since the hotel business was still doing great, it was that more and more was becoming automated. Fewer people called about reservations and the vast majority was just people complaining. I was right, though I would never go back even though I could not have known it. Would I want to? No, probably not. But, still, I rather that things had not worked out the way they did. I think now I'm starting to come to terms with it, but I always wonder how my life would have been if my roommate had not shown me that box. I arrived home to my roommate, his name is Ryan by the way, I don't think I said that yet, playing the newest Halo game online. We had a big setup in our living room, with 2 big TVs and 2 Xboxes so we could talk strategy as we played if we wanted. Our computers were in our respective rooms, but we could yell across if we needed to. The greatest thing about gaming these days is you did not have to know people to play with them. Online had made it easy to get people to play with. Just log in and search for a game. He stopped when I got home. He had a job too, but he also owned the place, so he was saving a ton of money since I was paying half of his mortgage. He was a psychologist major, but not your typical psychologist. He was into the study of brainwaves and how they were affected by different thoughts. It was pretty cool stuff. Hey, don't judge me, I told you I was a geek. He could tell a lot about a person by their brainwaves, and he said they were developing theories on how to use that to help people with their problems. He even worked at a technology firm that dealt with those ideas. Have you seen those devices that people can put on their heads and let their thoughts control the TV or a computer or anything? Well, the firm he worked at was probably behind some of the technology, even if you had never heard of the name. Not that he was a bigwig at the firm or anything. He was just an intern, but at least he had a job in the area that he liked. He could move up and go places. Me? I could move up and yell at people for doing the job I was currently doing. I should have known that he was up to something. He and I were not the closest, but we did share our love for gaming. Xbox, computer gaming, even gaming on tablets, you name it, we both played it. But beyond that, we really had different worlds. I had known him in college, and when I had found a job in the area, he had seen it and was nice enough to let me stay with him for a time. I am sure part of it was that he would get my rent money to help him save his own money, but it was still a nice thing to do. And because we were in two different worlds so much, I had hardly noticed he had been acting differently. I thought it was because of a project at work he had to finish or something. He had not played many games last night. But when he had stopped in the middle of a game tonight when I got home should have been a big clue. I said hi and grabbed a quick bite from our refrigerator. I liked to eat when I got home and then move on to everything else I wanted to do before night came and I had to sleep enough to function at work. He had stopped playing, but he was not really talking to me, so I walked into my room and sat at my computer. I wanted to unwind, so I loaded up my favorite game of all time, StarCraft 2. I loved strategy games. And having to play them in real time made it fun, because it forced you to think fast and adapt on the fly. It was not like a board game where you could take 15 minutes to plan one move. You had to make a decision then and there, or else you would be dead before you knew it. I liked playing the multiplayer a ton. Not that I was that great at it, but if you played against just the computer, it started to become easy to predict. The only way to even try to make it hard would be to give it unfair advantages. But against humans, the only advantage either one got was the knowledge and skill they had to bring to the game. I played my first game and lost, but barely squeaked out a win my second. A typical start for me, unfortunately. The game was good at matching you against opponents your skill level, so unless you were just better than everyone or were rapidly improving, chances are you would not win much more than half your games. I had finished up the sloppy win when I heard Ryan behind me. "Hey, Scott, I want to show you something." "Oh yeah, my name was Scott." Don't get too used to it though, you are not going to hear it that often in this story. But it's good to remember. He startled me when he spoke. I jumped. He had come into my room. Usually a taboo between roommates, but sometimes it was permitted for a good reason. Still, he must have been watching over my shoulder as I played with how close he was standing. I turned to look at him. "Oh, hi Ryan. What's up?" "Hey, man. Sorry to spook you. I wanted to show you something. I found something the other day and I could not figure out what it was. I think I did though. I want you to see it." "Okay." I got up and followed him over to his room. I was a little leery. I thought this might be some sort of practical joke. Now, I wish it had been. As I got into his room, I noticed a huge box on the far side. It was shiny, made of some kind of metal, and since it looked to be one solid piece, there was no way it had fit through the door. It looked like it had to have been heavy. I wondered how he had got it into the house without me knowing. Maybe during the day or something, but it had to have been a huge effort. He could have hid it somewhere, I guess. Our house was out of town, not too far, just enough where the houses spread out so that they were not side by side. It would be easy for him to have hid it around back, but it would still have been tough for him to have moved it into his room. "Here, this is what I wanted to show you," he said. "What is that?" The box, I did not know how else to think of it, looked like something out of a science fiction show. It was too clean and shiny for something just found out in the woods. It was smooth all around except for a crystal in front and a dark-looking flat area. I don't really know, but I found it could do this. He put his hand in front of the crystal and suddenly the dark area sprang to life and projected an image above it. I think I was more interested in the technology behind the image than the image itself, but both were pretty fascinating. A beautiful girl stood there, the projection maybe 10 inches big, dressed up like she wanted to meet you. Her look said it was not just any guy she wanted to meet, but you specifically. And it looked so real. I mean, I could tell it was just an image, but I felt if I could magnify it that it would be accurate down to the pores on her skin. It was like a 3D picture of incredible resolution. I had not heard of technology with that detailed projection imaging. It was amazing. I immediately wanted to know how it works. How did it do that? I asked. I'm not sure exactly. But somehow it can read minds. Crazy, huh? I was thinking of that girl when I put my hand on the crystal. It must be able to read brainwaves or something. He put his hand there again and the image shifted to himself, then to me and then to several other images, including a young Captain Kirk and several alien females from different shows and movies. All right, he said and turned to me. This is what I want you to do. I want you to think of your dream girl and put her up there. I want to try something. I frowned. I was fascinated by the technology. But my dream girl was a private thing. I would never meet her, and if I did she would never give me the time of day. Why bring her up? Still I wanted to try the box, so I gave it a shot. I put my hand on the crystal and thought of something. A few seconds later the image appeared. Ryan frowned. No. I mean your dream girl. This one is barely an 8. I am talking about the girl who would never take notice of you even if you had $1 million. She'd require something special. I shrugged and defended myself. Well, my dream girl wouldn't exist anyways. He gave a small laugh. Well, try it. I want to see what happens. Think of it as a small experiment and humor me. He did that sometimes. I think it goes with being a psychology major. It made you want to do experiments to see how people's minds worked. Sure, why not though? Round 2, then. Pull out all the stops. I was right in saying my dream girl would never exist. There is too much geek in me for her to be all of this reality, but I gave it my best try. I thought of everything a perfect girl would be, the real things, and the things that would be impossible, and gave it a whirl. Now when I mean impossible, I don't mean like she was like a squid or something weird from this planet. I was big into fantasy and science fiction, and my perception of what a woman could be was heavily influenced by that. Since space travel did not exist, that was one check that was impossible. Since Jedi did not exist, that was number 2. But in theory, I suppose, those ideas could exist. Somewhere. So that's why I gave it a shot, and I went far into it as I could. I put my hand in front of the crystal and gave it a try. I focused hard on it. Nothing happened. I frowned and tried again. For the longest time the display showed blank. I kept thinking about it, letting my subconscious do its part of putting all the little things into this imaginary woman as I could. But here, my woman could be real, so everything I put in about her I thought of as real too. I eventually pulled my hand back in defeat. For a moment I thought it was a trick by Ryan. He would do something like this to see how hard I would try at it. He probably had rigged it so it worked for him, but wouldn't work for me. Ryan frowned and I could tell he was puzzled by it too. So rule out the trick part. Apparently even this machine would not pretend that my woman could exist. And then suddenly, when I thought nothing would happen, she appeared. She was a gorgeous redhead, complete with an amazing outfit. I had been thinking of Mara Jade and Sarah Kerrigan. Before the transformation, no strange fetishes for me there, thank you very much, as her basic form. Those two represented real women in science fiction for me. The woman was young though. Younger than either Mara or Sarah would have been. I was 24 and I pictured her as a few years younger than me. After using those two characters as the form, the rest was just ideas of who she was and what she would like and what she would do. The image had a beautiful white dress with some orange and yellow. It was one of those dresses you could not quite tell if it was casual or formal, but boy did it look amazing. I was actually a little surprised it came from my head. There was a little duffel-type bag in the image too. I was probably thinking of too many things and she couldn't have them all on at once, so the image spilled it over into other things she would have with her. Ryan laughed. But it was in an appreciative way. Wow. You did it. She is a real knockout. Makes me want to change my image of a perfect woman. Okay. I did mine. Now what? You do yours? No, he said. I got something else in mind. I don't know what it was about his voice, but it startled me. Now I was about his size. He was a bit taller, but I was stockier, so it evened out, so I was not scared physically. But something about the way he said it was wrong. Like I said earlier, he and I were in different worlds except for video games, so I could accept seeing a side I did not know, but this just sounded dark of him. Don't know how he could pack such menace in so few words, but he had. I turned to look at him and he was eyeing me strangely. I think this will do for me, he said, and I was going to ask what he meant when I suddenly felt dizzy. I did not know what happened exactly, but somehow he must have drugged me. I took a few steps and staggered before falling to the ground. I woke up inside a tiny closet. It was well lit and shone bright, even though I could not tell where the source of the light was. I was half propped up, as there was not really any room to even sit down. At the top of the room was a giant orange crystal, but the light did not seem like it was coming from it. Another crystal was at waist level. Suddenly I heard banging from the outside. Scott! Are you okay? It was Ryan. My head felt cloudy. I was awake, but my thoughts were still a bit muddled. What happened? I asked, loud enough to be sure he could hear me. He sounded muffled, so I was not sure how thick the door was. I don't know. The door is locked from out here. You have to press the crystal to open it. Okay. I stood up and touched the crystal. Now, why did I do that, you might be asking? Why did I listen to the man who just before I was scared by his tone of voice? Well, I clearly was not thinking straight. It could have been the lingering effects of however he drugged me, or that I was just waking up. But in that moment I was so out of it I probably would have pulled a gun trigger if someone told me to. Worst mistake? Well, probably. Although I did not know how else to get out of the closet, and it made sense the crystal would open it. There wasn't anything else that would. A bright flash of light surrounded me as I touched it. I suddenly felt very different. Everything felt very wrong. I knew something had changed, but I couldn't tell what. That muddled haze I was in was still affecting my thoughts. The door opened on the closet, and I realized it was not a closet at all. I was in the box we had been looking at. I had wound up inside it somehow. Outside of the box, though, everything looked off. I glanced around everywhere and it took me a minute to figure it out. The proportions were off. I saw Ryan there and he seemed taller than even before. The ceiling seemed higher than it had been. Even the room looked bigger than I remembered it. Not by too much, but enough for each object to make me dizzy. Wah! I began. My voice came out wobbly. I felt unsettled, so it made sense that sounded off. I took a step back though, confused and disoriented. "It's okay," Ryan said. It was soothing. The way he spoke. His voice was a nice thing to hear, the way he was reassuring me. I didn't know why, but it made me feel better. "What's going on?" I asked. And with that I knew something was more than a little off. It was completely wrong. In the haze though, I couldn't pinpoint what. I sat down on the bed to steady myself and begun to look around. I did not get very far before Ryan spoke again. Oh, his voice sounded good. I could have sat there and let him speak to me. "Hey, how about you go make something to eat? I'd like a sandwich." Now, you might be catching on, but I had not. Man, he was being sexist. Still, I could not pinpoint what was going on. The suggestion sounded good, though. Why think about what could be wrong when I could go make some food? I put my worries behind me and trusted that if Ryan was composed enough to ask me to make him something to eat, then I should. If he was confident, then I shouldn't worry about it. I got up, walked over to the kitchen, pulled out the bread and rummaged through the fridge for something to put on it. In the end, I found some turkey and a few other toppings to make into a good sandwich. Now I am normally fairly clean even though Ryan is not, and I try to keep things nice in the house, but that day I found the kitchen too messy to leave alone. My normal tolerances of clean were much higher at the moment than usual, so I decided to take care of it. When Ryan was done eating, I took the plate and washed that too. After that was done, I sighed and again tried to figure out what I had not yet put my finger on. I still knew something was naggingly wrong, but I just couldn't place it yet. I knew I'd be able to figure it out in time, but I'd rather do that sooner than later. I had been okay with putting it off earlier because that meant I could make Ryan a sandwich and then I had cleaned most of the kitchen. Right when I was about to mentally dive into the mystery, Ryan spoke up again. "Hey, would you want to do something together right now?" "Sure," I said without thinking, my concerns immediately put off again. "What do you want to do right now?" "Oh, I don't know." "What do you want to do?" "I'm good with whatever you want." "Okay," he said. "But I want to know what you would prefer." I barely had to think about it. "How about let's play some games together?" He easily agreed. I smiled as we sat down in front of the Xboxes. The nagging feeling that something was wrong was shoved to the side as I decided to enjoy the time with Ryan. It was always fun to play games with people I knew, but tonight it seemed like it would be extra special. We started up a multiplayer game in Halo and played a match against each other. It took about 10 minutes and was a blast. I kept up with him on kills, but he always managed to stay ahead. I did pass him one time, but not for long. We ended with him beating me by 3 kills. Part of me wanted to pout in my loss, but it had been so much fun. "You were holding back," he said when we were finished. "No, I began." But as I thought about it, I realized I was. I did not want to lie about it, not to Ryan, but I didn't want to upset him either. I didn't even know why I was holding back. It was fun to play him and beat him, so why didn't I? "You were, weren't you?" I guess I was." "I'm sorry." And I did feel sorry about it. I should have played smarter so he wouldn't have noticed me holding back. Aw, well. We live and learn. I didn't know how much I was holding back, but I was confident I could beat him if I wanted to. "Let's play again, but don't hold back." I shrugged and he started up the next game. And I stomped him. Not a beat him by 3 or 4 kills score. I stomped him. We were playing to 20 kills and I won with him only getting 1 kill on me. I think I had held back just that much, even though he had said not to. I didn't want to make him feel too bad. I had seen him smile when he got the kill, so that was enough for me. Part of me was going to throw the rest of the match, but I already had too large a score for him to think he was making a comeback. At the end, he just looked over at me. Fascinating. It's truly amazing how you did that. And I blushed again, not knowing why. I knew I was acting differently, but it felt fine. Whatever the reason, I was enjoying the time with him. And it sounded good for him to say that. He and I had not really got to know each other too much, but I was starting to hope we could get to know each other more. Let's play online this time, on the same team, he suggested. That sounds great. I was excited. I felt better knowing I would be playing with him, and that I could go stronger without hurting him. We played 2 matches online and won them both. The first time we stuck together and racked up the kills working as a team. We did not need to communicate much, but he listened when I told him to back up or to not go a certain way, and I also let him do most of the decision making. I only told him when to move when it meant one of us dying. We came out as the top 2 players of the game, but I still beat him by a wide margin. The second one, I was determined to get his score higher than mine. It took a bit of work, but I managed easily. I did a lot of damage to the enemies and got some kills, but I mostly kept them off of us and tried to get him to have the last shot on weakened opponents as often as I could. He came out on first place by a wide margin. I did so well at helping him I did not even get second place points, but I was fine because I had helped him get first. That was reward enough. But he was not done. It had started to get late, but he wanted to play with me on some computer games. We had fun on them, and even got around to playing StarCraft 2. Man, it was a blast. We stomped opponents so fast, we had time for a lot of games. Looking back, the scariest thing about that night was how much fun, honest to goodness fun I had. Even later, knowing everything he had purposely done, my thoughts still think of that night as one of the happiest memories I have. We played till almost 3 in the morning. Ryan started to get tired, and I knew I should get rest too. I was still going strong, but I would pay for it later if I kept up for much longer. I almost crashed before I got into my bed. It wasn't until the morning that I screamed. "What the hell did you do?" I yelled at him. I was furious. I was mad and ready to kill him. I would have roasted him with just a look if not for the thought in the back of my head that it was a feminine stereotype. The night before I had fallen asleep before my head had hit the pillow, and slept without a care. But when I awoke, reality crashed down on me. I had known something was wrong last night, but I had not been able to pinpoint it for the life of me. I could not have imagined the magnitude of it. I had awoke early. The sun was not even up, but the room was lit from me forgetting to turn off the light from the night before. I sat up and looked down. I saw the breasts first. I dared not call them my breasts. I could not. But there they were, right in my view. I caught myself and gasped for breath. They heaved and I ran. I ran to the mirror in my bathroom, thinking again how everything seemed larger. The room, the ceiling, the bed. I had slept with my feet just hanging off the bed for I don't know how long. But this morning I had awoken comfortably contained in the bed. At the mirror I realized what had happened. It was the dream girl that looked back at me. The one who shouldn't exist. She was a redhead beauty, complete with a gorgeous dress to boot. I knew she was a few inches shorter than I was used to, which was why everything felt larger than it should. Everything about her seemed perfect. She even pulled off the messed up look she had from sleeping in a dress all night. She was a few years younger than I had been. Probably around just 18 or 19, whereas I was 24. For a moment I thought I was still dreaming. It was a dream brought on by last night. By Ryan making me talk about my dream girl and then by us playing so many science fiction or fantasy-based games together. For a moment I thought that was the only possibility as to what was happening. Or maybe it was some sort of suggestion. Ryan was using me as a guinea pig in one of his psychology experiments. But it was real. I don't know how long it took me to accept that. I just remember finding myself sitting down by my bathroom sink crying, finally coming to the grips that this was not a dream or some crazy experiment. The sun had come up and was shining light into the room. And that was when the anger hit. Ryan had done this. He had somehow engineered last night and had done this. And now I had breasts. So I rushed over to his room and began yelling at him. He wasn't even awake yet when I got there, but that was the least of my worries. I yelled at him and woke him up. And then I yelled some more. How the hell did this happen? My voice somewhat disturbed me. It was too high-pitched for comfort. It sounded nice. Not shrill or anything, but it was not my voice. It reminded me that my body was wrong almost more than the breasts did. I could at least look up away from them, but at the moment I was yelling at Ryan. He had got up and dressed quickly. Luckily he had slept in his shorts and changed in his bathroom, so I did not have to go out to wait for him. I was irate, but even then I felt him changing in front of me was wrong. Not least because part of me wanted him to. I had calmed down a bit by the time he stepped out of the bathroom. Okay, I said as steady as I could. What the hell did you do? It's okay, he said. Andy wanted to believe him. A little of the fear left me. Not much, but a little. So what is wrong? And there went my calm. He damn well knew what was wrong. He was treating it like nothing. My anger flared up again. I am a woman. That's what's wrong. How can you ask me that? Fascinating, he replied. It made me want to hit him. I almost did. He saw the anger in my eyes, so he quickly amended it with okay. I'll explain. Give me a moment. Let's go out to the living room. I walked out there and tried to calm down again. I was upset, but he said he would explain. That assurance at least allowed me to think again. So, I found that device I showed you last night, he began. I wasn't sure what it did at first, but about 3 days ago I figured out how to use it to alter myself. I didn't change much, not visibly, not yet at least, but I was able to change myself mentally and internally. I'm no doctor, so I am not sure how much I can do yet, but I was able to use it to make myself smarter so I could learn a few things off of the good old internet. Do you know how handy it is when you can assimilate things as fast as I can now? And last night you used it to change me? I had planned on yelling it, but it had become an honest question. Somehow, as he talked, my anger melted away. I wanted to figure out what was going on, but for the moment I would just settle for him to keep talking. Well, much of you is your own doing, you know. You did the big picture. After all, I wanted you to enjoy yourself. I just made a few small alterations after. I don't think the machine would let me do much more than I did, but I kept it small anyways. And even if I could have done more, I might have displaced part of what you had put there. I didn't want to do that. I was interested in the full picture of what you had put in that machine. It never took longer than a few seconds to figure out how to do my alterations, so you must have imagined something big to make it take so long to figure out how to do all the things you wanted. All my alterations did was allow you to enjoy yourself more. Bullshit, I said, with some reason coming back into my head. You don't do something like this to a person without their permission. That's monstrous. He shrugged. That's how all the great experiments go. The subject cannot know or else the experiment is ruined. So you drugged me, stuck me in the machine and fooled me to push the button? And then tell me I'm supposed to be okay with that because you are treating this like an experiment? How the hell do you figure that? What if I got stuck or the machine messed up? I was angry, but for some reason I could not get my anger up as much as I wanted. What I wanted was to hear Ryan talk more. But I knew this was wrong. He even admitted to doing something in my head, so I couldn't trust my thoughts about him. Well, you were not supposed to figure it out so fast. Aw, well. Back to the drawing board. No way. You do not get to tinker with that machine anymore. We are going to change me back and then we are going to throw that out. No, was all he said. But his tone scared me. He gave it a small shake of his head. His attitude was the way you would say no to a burger. He'd rather have a burrito or a steak. There was no deliberation, or even acknowledgement of what his decision would mean. After all, you don't ask the steak if it wants to be eaten. He meant to continue to use that machine. I am going to change back and then we can have this conversation. No, I don't think so. Not yet, he said. It was all in the same casual tone. It took me a second to register what he meant. He was fine with preventing me from changing back. It was not something even up for discussion for him. I looked at him and saw his composure. He was being serious. At this point, I would have paid anything for this to be some sort of practical joke. But I could tell he meant every word he said. Something in him had changed. Or some change he had done to himself had brought out this monster. The moment I realized there was no reasoning with him, I ran to his room. I did not hesitate. I gave him no opportunity to react. I had to reach the machine. Stop! He yelled, before I had taken more than a couple steps, already getting up. I was still getting my momentum, but suddenly my body tried to slow down. Something in his voice made me want to stop, but I could not let it. I kept running. But he was faster. Not by much. I could have made it. I felt a lot faster in this body than I had in my other one. But my hesitation when he yelled at me gave him the edge. He got to me before I could even touch the crystal, let alone project a mental image of my old self into the machine. He was stronger than I expected. Now I know the machine had done a number on me and I had barely figured out anything that this body could do, but if I had truly become the image of my dream girl, I should not be a weakling. He dragged me to his closet. He positioned himself well so he had all the leverage, and like I said, I was still unsure of myself in this body. It had a grace to its movements, but I did not know how to make it work to free myself. He reached into the closet and grabbed something. I felt something slap on my wrists, and next thing I knew, my wrists were in manacles. Not the little handcuff loops, mind you, but solid manacles more than an inch wide. The manacles attached to each other by a short chain, and that chain was attached to a longer one which he had in his hands. I struggled, trying to pull my arms away. I was in a full panic, eyes wide and everything, but I dared not stop. I used all my might. I pulled as hard as I could, both my hands bound together. Fear threatened to overtake me. I knew if I did not escape now, I might never. If he had planned enough to get chains to tie me up, who knew what else he planned for? I was already in handcuffs and he was stronger than me. The implications him stopping me flooded my mind, my imagination dredging up the worst possibilities. I was able to pull free, somehow getting the right leverage, but it did me no good. His grip slipped on the chain, but my foot slipped off balance. I recovered, not even falling to the floor, and was able to get several steps, the long chain dragging against the floor. I had not thought where I had planned on going when I reached the door. My only thoughts were away from him. Anywhere was better than here. But he yelled and I knew I was in trouble. Stop! Stop struggling! It affected me, again. As much as I knew everything about this was wrong, there was part of me that wanted to listen to him. To stop and let him do what he knew was best. I pushed the impulse down and tried to keep up my run, but it gave him enough time. He was able to grab the long chain and yank me off my feet. I fell to the floor and he dragged me back to the closet. I heard another rustle of metal and my ankles were bound too. Even if I could get free, I had no way to run now. He dragged me through the living room to my room and attached the chain on my wrists to the head of the bed. My feet were attached to something on the floor, at the foot of the bed. I had not noticed anything last night, but apparently he had prepared for this. It scared me. I cried. I had started crying the moment my ankles were bound. It was the moment I knew I was his prisoner. The moment I first felt helpless. I cried all the way as he had dragged me to the bed. It was not what my dream woman would have done. Although, my dream woman would not have been caught. She would have been too quick to catch or somehow had got the upper hand. But there I was chained to my own bed in a body that was not my own. I did not know what else to do, so the tears flowed down. I tried to struggle a bit too, but the chains were firm. I had enough movement to pull my hands into my body, but it did not help. He waited until I calmed down and then spoke to me. His words were soft and his tone reassuring, even if there was no way he could reassure me now. I had hoped it would have worked. I mean, yes, the changes were small, but they should have kept going forever, or at least a long time. We would have had fun. I mean, I could tell you were having fun last night. He gave a smile before continuing, I can't believe your gaming skills were altered so much. Maybe it seemed too petty to me with everything else you could change, but apparently your dream girl is a master at all things geeky. It made me want to change my gaming skills, but after thinking about it I probably will just keep them how they are. If I can figure out how to fix this, we can still have the same fun as last night. It would be too easy to win if I changed them too much, and I like the challenge. And you can even enjoy yourself too like you were yesterday. What the hell is wrong with you? I said. My eyes were drying. I was too much in shock of his calmly spoken psychotic words to keep crying. He had gone from okay to completely whacked in no time flat. He chained a girl to a bed and acted like nothing was amiss. Can't you see that this is wrong? Let me go. That's all I want right now. You can go back to the box and do whatever you want to yourself. I could. But what is the fun in that? No. I like you this way. The way you are, now. I admit you got to me. I was considering changing you back, but last night was just too wonderful. Even just your presence was amazing. We didn't even have to do anything. No, he continued. I'm just going to have to figure this out. The machine is amazing, but even it is limited. I'll just have to be imaginative. I'll figure out a way to work on your attitude. I guess I'll have to call in sick today. I hoped to not miss much more work. But we have to figure this out sooner than later. It was again the way he was talking about it that was scary. It was too casual. This was my life he had, and he was treating it like what flavor of ice cream he wanted that day. Please, I said. I did not care how I sounded. It was pitiful, the tears returned. I was not above begging. I knew I had to get out of here. I would do anything at that point. Please. Don't do this. Think about what you are doing. I shouldn't be like this. He smiled and brushed his hand against my hair. Don't worry. I'll fix this. Please don't scream, though. I don't want to gag you. I had made a lot of contingencies the last couple days, but I would prefer not to gag you right now. He grabbed my wrists and pulled them up over my head. He tightened the chains somehow so that I couldn't move. I knew my eyes were full of fear and panic, but he did not do anything more. He just checked that they were secure and walked out. I don't know if you have ever been terrified before. Not just scared. I'm not talking about that. We have all been scared. We all have hid when something startled us or ran when something frightened us, but that is just it. We can run, we can hide. Flight or fight is a great thing. It allows our body to be prepared to do anything necessary. But when you are scared and know you can't do anything, that is when terror sets in. I was terrified in that bed. My wrists were in chains that I knew I could not break. My ankles were chained together so I could not even run if I somehow worked the chains loose. And there was a madman in the other side of the house who could be thinking of all sorts of crazy things to do to me. He had stretched the chains tight so I could barely move. My arms were pulled over my head to the wall and my feet were pulled tight down. I could barely bend my arms or knees. It was not enough to do anything more than keep myself from getting too uncomfortable. It was the darkest moment I had known. Sure, I have experienced difficult situations since then, but not with a crazed lunatic that I had no clue what he wanted or could do. If he had walked in and twirled a mustache and said, "You have no idea what I am capable of," I would have had to agree. I tried to think of what I could do, but the terror overwhelmed my thinking. I could not piece together a logical explanation for anything that had happened except that I had been the victim of some sort of strange technology. The box had seemed so advanced and so alien that it made the most sense to have come from off-world. I mean, I did not believe in aliens, and I have yet to meet one, but there was no other explanation. If this sort of technology existed on Earth, there would be other signs of it. If a box existed that could change your body completely, that display I had seen on it would be considered a low-tech novelty in comparison. It made sense it was some off-world product. But beyond that I could not think. I wish I had tried harder, but the fear made it impossible. Terror of what was to come flooded my thoughts when I tried to think about what to do next. I don't know if I could have done anything in the bed with how tight I was bound, but it might have given me the knowledge to escape later that day. Instead, I spent the next couple hours crying and trying not to be too afraid. It was a mercy when my body grew weary from all the adrenaline it had to be producing and fell asleep. When I awoke again, I was not in my bed. I was curled up on a small two-seater sofa Ryan had in his room. My hands and feet were still chained together, but the chains were not pulled tight. It felt good to be able to move again. On the bed before I had fallen asleep, my arms and legs had begun to feel sore. The chain on my wrists led to a ring on the wall. Ryan had his back to me as he studied something on his computer. The sun was coming at an angle that meant it was early afternoon. I looked around the room and took stock of my situation. My dress had begun to feel uncomfortable. I had slept in it twice now, and had not had much time to adjust it. Being in a woman's body and then being bound had put adjustments low on the priority list. But it was fairly form-fitting, so any small twist could make a lot of discomfort, and after a long enough time even discomforts could get too much. And the dress was sweaty. All the crying and fear-laden sweat had gotten into it too. It might even get ruined if I stayed in it too much longer. I hoped I could change out of it soon. Now right there just shows how poorly I was thinking. I had gone from worrying about changing my body back to what it was to changing my clothes so I could feel more comfortable and that I wouldn't ruin such a nice dress. I was still afraid, less so at the moment than before, but the weariness and discomfort I felt was almost as debilitating to my thinking process. I kept looking around the room to see if there was anything that could help me, but as quietly as I could so Ryan would not notice yet that I was awake. I doubted I would find a miracle, but I was not going to give up. I first looked over the chain. He must have got it through the box. The links looked too perfect, too new, and they did not show any signs of being welded together. And they were heavy. Just by sheer weight I could tell there was no way I could break them. The manacles were solid too. The ones around my wrists showed no sign of a keyhole or device to remove them. Another sign that this was not something he had pieced together from items from Home Depot. I could barely even make out the break-in material where they had hinged and closed around my wrists. He must have something though. I doubt he had planned on keeping me in them forever. The chain on my wrists went to the floor, around and behind the sofa, and attached to a ring in the wall above it. It was just a few feet away, and I could tell it was solidly in place. I could not even tell how it was clasped to the ring. As far as my eyes could tell, it looked one piece. I had probably about 10 feet of slack, but that would not get me out of the room. I thought it might have enough slack for me to move to Ryan, but the chain would be too tight for me to do anything and my feet were still bound. No way I could overpower him that way. I stretched again and thought about how good it felt. It helped to get some of the soreness out of my arms and legs, but I was careful to move slowly, to make no noise if possible. I made sure the links of the chain did not clink as I went around trying to relieve the soreness. The key was Ryan. I needed to figure out what he wanted. I had no other way to get out of the situation than through him. If I could figure out what he was after, I could maybe use it to escape. So what did I know? I made a list. He was a psycho monster who had no qualms about changing the very essence of who I was. He was a psychology student, maybe that made him psycho? Ha ha. Okay, terrible, but I take what I can get, who graduated with me a couple years ago from the same college. He worked in a firm that dealt with brainwave technology to help those who were troubled. And he had control of a machine that would pretty much bend the laws of physics, if not break them. I mean, it had done crazy stuff so far. Nothing like break the speed of light, but rearranging the atoms of a body was no simple task. Okay, so maybe I knew too much. It scared me. I had no idea what he could do with all that. He had already messed with my brain when I had first gone in that machine. Last night I had wanted to do what he asked, and didn't think twice about it. Had that been some kind of psychology thing he had figured out how to work into the machine? I couldn't think of what else it could be. My only consolation was I had not done anything I did not want to. Well, maybe the sandwich was a small stretch, but I had not thought of it as wrong. Cleaning could be argued to be a good thing and gaming was a blast. But they should not have been that great to make me miss the fact I had been changed into a woman. It must have been more of an augment really than a full brain change. I was still me. He had just found a way to push me about a bit because of what he had done to my brain. He pushed me to like him and to want to please him, then he had pushed me to enjoy myself. And today I had resisted him. Last night I could not even realize I was in a woman's body acting like I was smitten with a cute boy. I mean, I blushed at his compliments like they were the greatest thing in the world. But something was different about this morning. Maybe his control had slacked because he was not around. And then when I found out I had a woman's body, it became less effective. Something that wrong could not be overcome by wanting to please him or enjoy a computer game or two. But he could still slow me down with a word, which was more than slightly insane. So what had caused him to become like this? The Ryan I knew last week was a decent guy. They say that power can corrupt, but this level of change was extreme. Was he always like that and I just did not notice it? I suppose, to some extent. I mean, we weren't the best of buds, and I did not hang out with him too much, so he could have been hiding something about himself. I would have made some mental comment about how he just needed a girl to take the stress away, but at the moment I was the nearest one, and there was no way in hell that would happen. I struggled through all these thoughts and more. I figured he had altered my thinking just enough to nudge my thoughts in a direction he wanted. Now that I knew that, I hoped I could counter it. The good news was I was still me and I could still think for myself. The bad news was that Ryan might think of a way around that before much longer. If he could have been able to do that much brain twisting to me on the first try, I did not want to see what he could do the second time around. I was tempted to try to make a run for it, but I knew it was hopeless. As much as part of me felt I needed to try, it would accomplish nothing. I put the thought down, knowing it was futile. A chain link must have made a sound, or maybe he had finished up with something he was reading and was taking a break. In either case, he turned around. Oh, good. You're awake. Feeling better? My tongue got stuck in my throat. I wanted to throw a snide remark at him, but I did not want to make him mad. I needed to figure out more, and did not have the luxury to be chained down while he figured out his next step. The fear returned, but I put it down. I nodded instead, hoping that would be enough. Good. I am glad to hear that. He stood up and walked over to the couch. I fought not to flinch away from him. I did not want to be touched by him. But again, I knew I had to not upset him. He had seemed like he wanted a companion more than he wanted to be feared, so I would do best to not let my fear show. The rest of my emotions were enough to deal with, though. As he walked over, I felt my body, well, get excited. Not like instant libido or anything, but just glad he was moving toward me. Now I am not gay. Never was. But this body wasn't designed to be a lesbian either. It had been designed to like guys, and my mind had been altered to view Ryan as a great guy, so I felt something through what my body wanted. I immediately put it down, and thought about the horrors he was doing. There was no way anything would happen between me and Ryan. No way. He sat down beside me and brushed a strand of hair behind my ear. It made me freeze. No way was anything going to happen, I had thought, but how could I stop him if he thought differently? Is there anything I can get for you? He asked. When I was about to open my mouth with some snarky comment, he added, reasonably, of course. Are you hungry? Do you need to use the bathroom? I suddenly realized I had to. I couldn't remember going the night before, although it was a possibility I had in all the craziness, and I had not noticed it, and I had not yet today. I felt the need hard. He unhooked the chain from the wall, careful to not allow me any advantage, but what was I going to do? Hobble out of the house, and moved it to another hook just outside the bathroom. There was plenty enough chain to sit down, but I couldn't fully shut the door because it was hooked to the outside. It was awkward. He did not unchain either of my hands, so they were bound within a few inches of each other, and I still had the dress on. It took a long time to even pull the dress up far enough to even sit down. But I managed. It felt totally strange, but I tried my best not to think about it. When I got up, I settled the dress back down to keep comfortable. Not that it really was as a whole, they are not meant to be, but it felt a lot better after I took a moment to smooth it back into place. I couldn't tell the time, but I guess I was in there at least 45 minutes. I came out and he had prepared a small snack for me. It mirrored my prisoner state, bread and some water. He was nice enough to have some crackers too for me to wash it down with. He had never been a good cook, I realized. He moved my chain leashes more like it back to the sofa and I ate it ravenously. I was still hungry when I finished, but there did not seem to be more coming. So I got myself comfortable. I did not know how long I would be at the sofa, so I figured I might as well. I stretched out, but since there was not quite enough room, stayed half sitting up. It felt nice, even though I was bending my waist so much. Ryan had gone back to work at the computer. I had nothing to do but sit and watch. He turned his head often to see if I was still awake and had not moved. Not that I was even the remotest threat. When he had chained me up, I could tell the chain would not let me reach across the room to Ryan's computer. I could maybe get to the box, but barely. I don't think I could get all the way inside, and even so I doubt it would close with the chain through the door. An hour later I fell back asleep. Boredom after terror can do that to you. I had slept earlier, but with nothing to do and my body still recovering from the terror from the morning, it was easier than I thought. The food also helped. Even if my stomach was not full, I felt a little better. When I awoke again, he was standing over me. I could tell by his look he was up to something. "Good evening," he said. "I don't know about you, but I think I'm ready to be done with those chains." They were supposed to be a last resort, not a long-term solution. I perked up. I knew there had to be a catch, but even so, without the chains I had a better chance of being able to free myself. It was too much to believe though, so I waited. The sun had come down further through the windows. My stomach grumbled from hunger. "I wish I had more test subjects," he continued. "I can imagine what I could do with them in the machine. I hoped you would be enough, but now I doubt you would touch the crystal again in the machine, and I can hardly alter my own mind the way I want to try with others. That would be too dangerous. I could make you perfect, but in that one little thing I need your cooperation to do it." "No way in hell," I said quietly. I kept my eyes down though. It had slipped out, but I still knew I did not want him mad. "I thought so," he said, getting up. "Ah, well. But that is why I thought of something else." I looked at him, eyes widening with fear. He had all day to be thinking of something and using the machine. Who knew what he had come up with? "There is a necklace around your neck. Feel it, but be careful when you do." I reached up and touched it. It was a solid chain, hanging just down from my neck, a princess-cut length. I could feel the ringlets interwoven, and at the front end was slightly thicker with some design in it, but I could not tell what it was. It probably was beautiful, it felt like it should be. I started feeling around the sides. "Ah. You should stop. Don't touch the clasp. You might not like it." I didn't stop. I had to know what new prison he was making for me. If this was part of it, I would know everything about it I could. When my hands touched the clasp, my hand caught fire. Burning pain flashed into my head, telling me something was horrifically wrong. In a moment's time it felt like it turned from a flame to all the flesh fell off. I pulled my hand back in pain and cried out, expecting something hideous. I collapsed to the side of the couch and forced myself to look. My hand was fine, but the mane was real. Nothing had been harmed on those hands, but the pain was real. It lingered and took its time to dissipate. I forced myself to sit up. The sight of those two pretty hands in front of me made me do it. I again resolved to get out of this somehow. "Sorry, but I did warn you. The pain should fade fairly quickly. But it will do that again, and even worse if you try it again. We are going to try something new." He walked around and I forced myself not to speak. He would say what he wanted to say. I just sat there and watched him. He picked up some sort of MP3 player and put one bud in his ears. I had hoped we could work something out. This has been a wonderful test, and enjoyable company made it even better. I wanted for it to work out better, and perhaps one day it will, but for now this is all I have. Well, here goes nothing, he said. And with that he pushed a button on the little MP3 player. The world went all like it had been last night. But even stronger. I could feel my brain being bent, but it happened so fast. I took a deep breath and looked at Ryan. I could see him in a new light. In the light I should have been seeing him in all along. Sure, he had been tough earlier, but he had meant well. He just wanted me to be happy after all. What he had done was not really a problem. How could I be happy if I ran away from him? He would probably even let me out of the chains soon, since I had realized now what he was really doing. Well, if I could make him realize he could trust me now, he would. I'd make sure to cooperate to prove he could trust me. Those thoughts and more washed over me. My whole perspective changed. I just sat there and smiled at him. Whatever he had planned next would be great. He would let me know when he was ready. He looked at me and must have noticed the change too. Feeling better? Oh yes. And I meant it. I did feel much better. I could enjoy this. All I had to do was what he asked and it would be a great time. What do you want to do? We could play more video games, that would be fun. True. But first I need to test this out. I nodded, the part of my screaming that he was manipulating me was barely audible. It felt good to just listen to what he wanted for now. But first, what to call you? Sarah. I said. That must have surprised him. I guess he was thinking out loud to himself, but it just came out from my mouth when he asked. He arched an eyebrow at me. Sarah? Not Mara? I shrugged. Mara is nice, but I like Sarah. Okay. Sarah it is. We can change it later if we do want to. And then he got into some bigger questions. Would you rob a bank if I asked you to? He asked first. It was a strange question and surprised me. I had to think about it. I was uncertain how I would answer. I determined whatever my answer I would tell the truth. He might not like it, but it would be better than him finding out later that I lied to him. He could make better decisions if I told him the truth. So I thought through it. I did not want to break any laws. I mean, the money would be nice, but breaking the law like that was much worse than speeding down the freeway. I might do that for him if he needed. Maybe the bank people were doing something bad and Ryan knew it and wanted to use that money to right a wrong. I thought like that for a bit and tried to picture Ryan asking me to do it. I thought it might change my answer if he actually asked me. But in the end I knew I would not. Breaking the law was not something to be done lightly. No. It's wrong, I responded. I don't think even if they were doing wrong things that I could do that. There had to be another way. If you need money though, I can give you what I have or go to work to earn more, although I don't know if they would recognize me there. He nodded as if he had been expecting it. I figured there were limitations with this. It is my first attempt at it. I can make something more agreeable to you, but not make you do something you view as wrong. Perhaps later it might be different. He asked me a slew of questions and I did my best to answer them. We found out I would do my best to protect him, but I would not harm innocent bystanders. I would give him all my money, but I would not steal to give it to him. I would not lie about anything really important, though I might fib if I thought it was a little thing. There were many more, but it seemed I still had my moral code. I was just far more likely to listen to Ryan if it did not get in the way of that code. Just 3 more questions, he said. I was glad. I had enjoyed answering the questions because it helped him, but I was ready for something more fun. First, he asked, "Would you touch the crystal inside the box you were in earlier?" No. I did not even think about it. I knew it might make him angry. I remembered I had not wanted to earlier, but even though things were different since then, I knew Ryan was trying to help me now, there was still part of me who knew I should not. I was just a little unclear on why I knew I shouldn't, like that part of my brain was not working quite right. Pushing the crystal would make Ryan happy, but even so, there was an unrelenting wall in my head telling me not to. My head hurt thinking through that. Ryan just nodded. His face told me he was upset. I apologized through my confusion. Well, I suppose that also answers my next question. In time. And that's enough work for one day too. So I will skip to the last question. Answer me truthfully. Will you try to escape if I free you from those chains? I looked down at my hands. I again remember thinking I needed to escape. I knew I should, but I did not want to lie to Ryan. This was not a little thing to lie about. I don't know. I wanted out of the chains, but I knew he would not let me out if he knew I would try to escape. Maybe if I promise you I won't escape, I won't. I looked up at him hopefully. I wanted to please him. I could worry about getting out of the house later. Maybe? He arched an eyebrow. I thought about it again. If I promise you I won't escape, then I won't. So promise me. I promise I will not try to escape tonight. And tomorrow? And tomorrow? And after? My face twisted up. I knew I should not promise to not escape for too long. There was still something important to do, and I knew I did not have enough time to put it off for too long. I see, he said when I did not answer. You are strong in there still. Well, I suppose it would not be fun if it was too easy. You can be free tonight. I was excited. He reached over and did something to the manacles that I could not figure out, but they popped open and soon enough my wrists and ankles were free. They felt very sore, but at least I could rub it out now. And it was not like Ryan was keeping me there for no reason. He was trying to help me in spite of myself after all. I am not sure how long this will last if I fall asleep. This end of the device requires conscious thought to work, he said. So if I fall asleep you need to chain yourself up again immediately. I nodded. I was sad that I would have to be chained up again, but it made sense. If I escaped he wouldn't be able to help me. He got up to leave and I blurted out the one question I could think clear enough to form. What was your second question? He blinked at me. The question you said was the same answer as if I would touch the crystal. It shamed me to bring up the crystal thing again, but I wanted to know. Oh. I was going to ask if you would sleep with me willingly. Now if it isn't apparent enough to you by now, my brain was trashed by everything he had done to this point. He had caused my thoughts to go loopy, with the core of myself barely able to have a say in even the most important thoughts. But I am thankful for my parents for that moment. I was pretty conservative in my sexuality. My parents had raised me to think of sex as for marriage only, and even though my ideas might have been slightly different from theirs, I still would not just have sex on a whim. Not even if I had known the person for years. My dream girl would be the same, so I had both ends covered that way. So he was right. I would not have slept with him, no matter how my body felt toward him. Again, I did not really know why. Part of me knew it would make him happy, but part of me knew I shouldn't. I was ashamed though. That's what gets me even now. He had twisted my mind up so hard that I was ashamed that I would say no to sex with this crazy, horrible monster who was manipulating my thoughts. I even hoped in that moment that I would change my mind as time went on. Not that night or the next, but in a few weeks hopefully I would feel better about it. We moved on, though. I made a quick dinner, as it was already getting late by the time he finished asking me questions, and then we sat down to play games. I sat next to him so I could be close. I was careful not to be too suggestive, but it did feel good to just be sitting close to him. I must have stank more than I thought. I had been stuck with it long enough to have got used to the smell. Ugh, go take a shower first. And you've been in that too long, find something else. He indicated to my dress. I thought about what I could change into and headed to my room. I could use the shower in there to clean up, but I needed something to wear. I guess I could use some of my old clothes. They would not fit well, but Ryan was right. I did smell. Anything would be better than what I was in now. In my room, though, was the duffel bag. It was the one that had appeared in the image on the machine. I had not seen it in the box, but Ryan must have taken it out and it wound up in my room. I could not remember what I had dreamed up that must be inside, but hopefully there was some clothing. I looked in and found some jeans and a shirt inside. The jeans looked a comfortable tight fit, and the shirt was a baby doll with a Zerg symbol on from StarCraft. I laid them out and washed in the shower. It felt so nice to wash off all the sweat and tears. I washed off the fear too. It can cling to you and you don't realize it, but my brain was not thinking about that. I mourned the lack of feminine cleaning supplies, but I made do. The soap worked fine, and my hair seemed resilient enough to go without conditioner this once. As a guy, my hair was short enough that conditioner did not matter. I washed up quickly and dressed. I did not want to keep Ryan waiting. If I did not have to, I wouldn't have even taken the time to wash my hair if I had not thought I needed it. I had more fun with him around anyways. I also remembered to put the dress in a gentle wash cycle so that it would get fresh. It was a beautiful dress. It would be a shame to ruin it. When everything was taken care of, I went back out and got ready to have some fun. The evening was as fun as the one before. There was a small tension I could feel with Ryan, but I did my best to ease it. I am sure he had no way to be 100% certain I had not lied to him, so he kept an eye on me. He need not have, though. At that moment my brain was twisted enough to keep promises to crazy psychos who messed with my very thoughts. So we relaxed and played games. I sat with him for the most part and we had a lot of fun. He had fun making up challenges for me in the games. First it was only using a pistol. Then it was never getting a kill while not dying and not hiding. The pistol was easy. I did miss more than usual, but I still was able to do far more than my fair share. Not getting a kill was hard. I wanted to help and still did my best. I almost got a kill one time by accident. I shot at a guy I knew I would not die from one shot so that another teammate that was there could finish him off. But a grenade exploded right before I shot and weakened him. He barely survived my shot fortunately, but only with a sliver. Another time I almost died because I got surrounded. It took a small amount of luck to get out of there alive, but I managed. It was fun. Even with my skill it gave a small challenge. That one was probably the toughest of that night, but he still had a lot of other challenges too. Some were fun because of what I was allowed to do, only take headshots. Others were due to their challenge. I had to lose my shields and regain them 3 times in a row before I could attack. He would rub my back or caress my arm between matches. I was careful not to let him get a free grab on anything, but his touch felt good. I enjoyed it. After one game he got talking. "Sarah," he began. I was eager to hear what he had to say, so I responded with a simple, "Yes? You are a very beautiful woman. I feel like the luckiest guy alive to have you sitting here." I blushed. I would say I turned bright red, but I am betting it looked more like a cute glow, even as strong as I felt it. I am sorry about all this, he went on. Part of me was surprised he apologized to me, but the other part of me said it made sense. He had bound me, even if it was for a good reason. It would make sense he would apologize for that. I had hoped we could have been happy without having to use the necklace, and I hope we can soon. I nodded. I found myself agreeing with him. It would be better that way. As of now, I was two different people, and the other one did not like him. It made me sad that there might be times when I did not like Ryan. I wanted to like him all the time. I want it to be like that, I said. Not having to have this on my neck or having to use the manacles. I cannot wait until we could be together without them, and I meant it. Oh, how I had meant it at the time. You have to fight for it, he said. It won't be easy, but with you helping we can do this. He leaned over and kissed me. I melted into it. It felt really good. I could feel my body reacting as he put his arms around me. One hand slipped down lower and I stiffened a bit uncontrollably. His other slid around to the front and I stopped. There was part of me who yelled to go on, but I couldn't. He noticed and pulled back from kissing me. I'm sorry, he said. I got too excited. Let's go back to playing. I guess I should be grateful that as much as he was fine with twisting my mind, raping it in a sense, he at least did not want to rape my body. He wanted it willing. In a few weeks he might even succeed. Later, looking back at it, I knew he could have taken me if he wanted, but I think he was still unsure of his control over me. Making me do something I did not want would harden my perspective of him, probably even in that mind-bent state I was in. If he wanted me to work with him, he would have to wait to sleep with me. We played some more and had a ton of fun. It was 2 a.m. when I felt a subtle change. We had just finished up a match. Ryan had not been doing that well, and since he had not really given a challenge, I stepped up so we could win. When it was over, I looked at him and saw he was out cold. Totally asleep. Part of me wanted to give his face a gentle caress and curl up next to him, but then I remembered what I had promised him. He was asleep, so I needed to put the chains back on. I stood up to go do it. I did not want to. I remember how they hurt, but Ryan had told me to so he could help me. I moved toward my bed. I was halfway to the room when I thought there might be another reason why I should not do it. I really should escape. Ryan was asleep. He would not wake up for hours. I could just walk out the door and be gone. Even if this device around my neck had a long range, I could be long gone before he would wake up. It would have to reach hundreds of miles for it to get to me. But I had promised. I had told him I would not escape. I did not want to break his trust. He would be upset if I did. I really should get the chains back on so I would still be here when he woke up. He might even be more okay with me leaving tomorrow. And I would get to see him again. In the end, I walked to my room. I quickly changed into something more comfortable to sleep in. Jeans would be horrid to sleep in, stretched out in the chains. I got in bed and made sure I would be able to reach the wrist chains once I finished with the ankles. The chains had little slack with how they were attached to the rings, so I did not want to make a mistake. I closed the first one about my ankle and felt a small doubt. Maybe I should get away. I was still mostly free. I could figure out how to open it and still walk out the door. Outside there was freedom. Instead, I closed the second one. After all, if I changed my mind, I still had my hands free. Freedom was nice, but if I stayed here I would see Ryan tomorrow. Ryan was here, not out there. I stretched out and grabbed the manacles for my wrists. It might be a little tricky getting them on both wrists with how close they were together, but I could close one and push the other one closed on the mattress. I would be sore in the morning, but since I promised I would not escape in the morning, I probably would be let free. I closed one and then the other. Right then I saw Ryan in the door frame. I thought about how happy it must make him that I did this all by myself, even though I had thought he was asleep. I had drifted off, and my device had shut down. And you still did it. Good. All I could think of as I went to sleep was how happy I had made him. In the morning I was back to pissed. I was myself again. Well, mentally at least. My arms were sore from the manacles and I was still female. But I was not thinking like I wanted to please Ryan. That made 2 times he had screwed with my mind. But this morning for some reason, even though I knew I had no way stopping him from doing it again, I was not afraid. Maybe it was from the fact that yesterday I had held out. I had not just said I would do anything he wanted. I had my limits, even in that state. Maybe I could use that to my advantage. And that gave me confidence. Still, it was only a matter of time before the psycho found a way around my barriers. I was limited on time. But for the first time in more than a day, I could think clearly without getting overwhelmed with fear or the desire to please Ryan. My situation was still dire, and I would be turned into Ryan-pleasing Sarah again, probably very soon, but I could think. So what could I do? Well, if I were free it would be easy. Walk out the door, and away from here. So then how could I get free without waking Ryan up? I still had no clue how to open the manacles. The key or switch was nothing typical and they were too tough to break. If only I really were Mara Jade, I thought, I would have a lightsaber and I could cut right through them. If only lightsabers were real. Now that was a thought. Were they? I had let my subconscious fill in a lot of stuff when I had been thinking about my dream girl, but was certain only the stuff I knew so well I didn't have to think through it would have got through. Like maybe the physics of Star Wars book I had read 100 times? There were things from the Star Wars universe that were possible in this reality and things that weren't. Lightsabers were thought to be a possibility, but modern technology was not advanced enough to set up a stable standing laser wave that self-terminated at a certain length. Even a blaster pistol would be great, and those were, relatively, simple energy weapons. The duffel bag had come out from the machine. There might be something in it. I tried to think. I had rummaged through it last night, but I had been thinking about clothes, not fictional technologies. But I remembered bumping against something metal when I pulled out my night clothes. My dream girl's duffel bag would be full of crazy things, just because it was part of who she was. She would have a way to carry most of them around or store them conveniently. It was still a long shot, but it was something. The duffel bag had been packed tight when I had first opened it, so it was unlikely Ryan had rummaged through everything. If there was something in there I could use, he most likely would not know about it. And then I realized I had been thinking about escape, instead of changing back. Man, my mind had been too bent these last couple days. I needed to get back to the box, not just get out of here. At the moment I didn't care if it was some sort of technology, bizarre alien technology, I would jump right in and change back. Damn the consequences and possible malfunctions, I would get to it if it took all I had. Escape was secondary to getting to use that machine. And then I would deal with Ryan. With the thing off my neck and his control of my brain gone, I would be free to walk out or do with him whatever I wanted. So that was the plan. Get to the box. Simple, right? There was only one small problem. Ryan could turn my mind into a tangled mess at a moment's notice. I needed to find a way to bypass that to get to the box. A small problem, right? Oh man, it was a terrible plan. But I had no better ideas. Part of me had stuck through yesterday. As much as he pushed me, there were things I refused to do. And it was not all that other me either. She wanted to do some of those things. It was me, this me, in charge of my head right now, who stubbornly refused. Maybe I could work with that today. I thought about what I could try. Maybe I could steel myself to do or not do something specific and use that. It could not be anything too obvious or else it would tip him off. I had to think of something subtle. I eventually thought of something, but it seemed like a long shot. It was the best I could do though. It would still take a lot of luck to pull it off. And I did it just in time. I felt my mind change. It felt strange, partially because I knew it would be coming. Since I was aware when it happened, I could sense the alterations in my mind. I would be comfortable as a woman. There was nothing wrong with it. Nothing to be concerned about. And Ryan would help me. If I was worried about anything, he was there. He would help me have fun and take care of me. I can trust him. After the transformation was complete, he walked in and asked me a lot of the same questions as yesterday. If I unchain you, will you try to escape? No, I said. I promised I wouldn't today. So then he freed me. He was going to work on the box again. He decided it wasn't worth going to work and had called in sick again. He had me prepare breakfast and then on to cleaning the house afterwards. It was simple, and the house needed it. By mid-morning I had put a good dent in cleaning the house. It felt good. I was surprised by how messy we had been. Before I had thought we were clean, but now I realized how much we weren't. It must have been a month since we vacuumed alone. And I couldn't tell when it had been dusted last. Dust was everywhere. It was not long before Ryan had a surprise for me. Well, now that I've found a way to work through this, I am putting a new identity together for you. He held up a new driver's license. The name on it was Sarah Connor. I laughed. Fitting name, I suppose. But does that make you the good cyborg Terminator or Reese? Reese, but only if he doesn't die. That will work. I smiled at him. Part of me felt good to have an identity. I had no birth certificate or any identification in this form. Having the driver's license was a start. I would be a person of society again. This also meant that he expected to be able to trust me enough around other people. That made me happy. I knew I wanted to get out of the house, and escaping would be so much nicer if Ryan was there with me. About lunchtime, though, things changed. His mood darkened. I was worried that it was my fault. He had been working for several hours, and I was careful not to disturb him. I had things I could do. But it got to lunchtime, so I made another sandwich for lunch for him. He was working at the computer and I brought it to him in case he wanted to work while he ate. I could tell he was frustrated. He was angry at something, and I could not imagine what, so I naturally thought it was something I did. He snapped at me, and so I put the plate down and left. About a half hour later he came out and apologized. He told me he needed to go somewhere, and to not leave the house. He looked a little worried, but I just nodded. Remember, you promised not to escape. I don't want to find out you break your promises. I won't. And promise me you won't use the machine while I am gone. Damn, so much for that. Even the twisted me who loved Ryan had thought about that the moment he was going to leave. But he asked me, so I promised him I would not use it. He placed down something in the middle of the table we ate at and warned me not to touch it. It will hurt like the clasp will. So don't try anything with it. I nodded again and he left. And then I got about to work. Not the housework, but the work I had planned. After all, I had promised I would not try to escape, but not that I wouldn't plan for an escape for another time. Even though he had been at the computer, I had been too busy with cleaning to do any of that planning. With him gone, I could think a little clearer, not much, but a little. The device he had left must have been an amplifier. Whatever brain-warping waves were coming from the MP3 player he had were still affecting me through it. But still, the effect was slightly weaker. I could push myself to do things I wanted. Escape and using the machine were out, since I had promised not to, and I could not push myself that far, but there were little things I could do. First, I rummaged through the duffel bag. There were several good gadgets in it. The first I found was a lightsaber, fully functional. It even had a cool violet glow that Mara had with one of her sabers. Then I found a blaster. I didn't test it then, so it could just be a fancy prop for all I knew, but I figured if the lightsaber was real, it should be too. I realized I would have to be careful with them. I had no way to repair or recharge them if something broke or they ran out of juice. I might be able to figure out a way, but it was best not to press my luck. There was also a nice data pad inside. I wondered what I could do with that kind of computing power. It might be sad to note that one of my first thoughts was all the games I could use it with, but my alibi is my still muddled head from the time. Yep. No way I would have thought that first if I had been in my right mind. I would have thought about more serious things, like using its computing power to end world hunger. Not that I could max out graphics on any game and enjoy its view to the fullest. Definitely. There were several other small gadgets, but I had found the one tool I needed, so I changed my clothes and packed up the duffel bag again. What I did next I am pretty sure I could not have done if Ryan had been there with the full power of his device. I took my lightsaber and walked into the living room. I ignited it and swung it around a couple times. It felt natural. I had changed into some of Mara Jade's traditional clothes. I was more than glad she was a conservative woman at the moment, and her black mission fatigues made me feel like I could walk for miles. I probably had the tools all along to stop Ryan on day one, but I had been too afraid to think of them. I tried a small force push on a glass just out of curiosity. I had not expected anything, but the movement felt as natural as swinging the lightsaber around. I got a little rattle from the glass, but not much. It was cool. I could do things with my will alone. I tried harder and was able to nudge it slightly across the counter. I would not be able to take on legions of stormtroopers with my force powers alone, but I could do something. Suddenly, without thinking even, I reignited my saber and slashed at the table. Part of me tried to stop before I cut it in half, but I failed, which was what I wanted. And then my head cleared. It was slow, over several minutes, but it worked. The slash had taken out the amplifier that had been sitting on the table, which had been my hope all along. I gathered the duffel bag and got everything together. I was free. Just one more small detail. I ran to Ryan's room and to the box. I took a moment to think about myself before the change. I got it in my mind. For a moment I hesitated. I wanted to be free of Ryan, that was a no-brainer, but did I want to go back to my old life? I mean, I was just starting to explore this new body of mine. It was full of possibilities. It was so chock full of talent I was sure I could write my own ticket to wherever I wanted. Would I want to give that up to go back to being my boring old self? Yes, I thought. I really do. I know I felt differently in this body, more confident well now that I knew I was going free and probably even smarter, but it was not me. I had been in for 2 days, but I had been me for over 20 years. Maybe, once I was back to my old self, if my dream girl showed up I would want to be more confident to ask her out on a date, but I was who I was. I put my hand to the crystal. I did have a few small changes I could do. But I would be fine with my boring old life. I could change it from that side. Starting over did have its temptations, but I was not wanting to completely abandon the old. And as I put my hand to the box, nothing happened. The box did not change at all. No image was displayed. Nothing lit up. Crap, I thought. He must have found a way to lock it. I would need him to get access. But when he was home, he would turn me back to do anything to please Ryan mode. I had to have a way to stop him, and I did not have time. Well, I had one idea. It was as far-fetched as you could believe, but it was all I had. So I went with it. A little internet search made it seem like it could work, but you're still going to laugh at me. I put it together as best as I could. I made it to go around my head, as thick as possible, and made sure it covered as much area as possible. When I was done, I am sure anyone would get a laugh out of me. I had tried using it to touch the clasp, but it did not work. Not that I had expected it to, that was only a secondary possibility, so I still could do what I had planned. Even with the material over the clasp, it hurt like hell when I tried to touch it. It was a hard mental block. And boy, was it painful. It took me a few minutes to bring myself to touch the material again, but since I was not thinking about using it to touch the clasp, I guess the pain did not get set off in my hand. I covered it with as many layers as I could. Ryan came home a little later. I had hid in his closet when I had heard him pull up and waited for him there. I would probably only get one chance at this. Otherwise, well, best not to think about that. Sarah! I heard him yell. I felt the desire to jump out to say hi, but I was able to shut it out. Either I was at least blocking out the signal in part, or it was just the residue of what he had done to my mind when he first transformed me. Sarah! Where are you? He glanced around, but sat at the computer. You promised you wouldn't escape. You can come out now. If you are hiding a surprise, I can't wait to see it. I could tell he was still worried. Whatever he had left to solve was not resolved. I wondered what the problem was. I saw him through the crack in the closet door, and he pushed the MP3 several times. My idea must have worked because I did not turn back to the other twisted self. Instead, I stepped out of the closet and ignited my lightsaber. He heard the noise and jumped when he turned around. I must have been a crazy sight. Violet lightsaber held out in front. And a head covered in tinfoil. I had made a complete helmet out of it. Yes, laugh now. I was saved by a tinfoil hat. It blocked radiation that could affect the brain patterns. You can make any joke you want, but it worked. I could think with him and his stupid device in the same room. I knew I was a sight to see, but it worked, so I didn't care. The helmet covered all of my head. Not just the top where my hair grew, mind you, but all the way over my face. Eye holes and breathing holes were all I dared leave exposed. I had covered the collar as much as I could so that it could not get signals either. He stood up from the computer dumbfounded. Sarah, stop, he ordered. I didn't. I kept my lightsaber trained on him. Take off the MP3 or whatever that device really is, I told him. Sarah, we can talk about this. Everything is okay. The words made me want to agree with him. Whatever screwing of my mind he had originally done was internal, and no amount of tinfoil would get it out. I pissed me off, but outwardly I remained calm. No. No talking. Turn the box back on and I am going to change. You don't have to do this. I was tempted to stab him right there. But I was not a murderer. Besides, I needed to use the box and he somehow had the key. Yes, I do. No talking, turn it on. I can't. Just do it. I yelled. It was muffled through the foil, but it still was startling. I was rattled because he sounded sincere. I refused to believe it though. I can't, he yelled back. He took a step back and sat into his computer chair. I stepped forward to cover him. It stopped working right before lunch. 1 minute I used it, the next I couldn't. I went out to clear my head to think of why it might have happened. You're lying. I'm not. Sarah, believe me, I'm not. Stop calling me Sarah. Fix it. Whatever is wrong, fix it. I don't know how, Sarah. Stop calling me that. The machine is busted, he cried. You're not going to stop being Sarah anytime soon. And my plans are ruined, I was not even half through with my research. This could have made a device that would make us king and queen in this world. But it's gone. He was mad, that was still evident. But he also was telling the truth. I could just tell. Something about it was obvious he was not faking this. He was not that good of an actor. Sarah, here, let's call a truce. I will take off the necklace and we can start over. Just you and me, how it should have been from the start. No way in hell. You have nowhere to go. No one to take you in, but I can help you. Help you start over. You can decide then what you want to do. I would not accept your help if I was hanging over a cliff with no way up. You've lied to me, screwed with my mind, and no amount of saying you were trying to help will change that. You are the last person in the world I want to see. I was scared in that moment. Part of me was scared. I was trapped. It was different than before, but I was trapped in a prison of another body, and this time there looked to be no escape. Whatever the box was, I doubt there would be another in the world. It might have strayed off course from some distant star and hit Earth, but the odds of that happening again was literally zero. I would have to chart a new course. Leave this old life behind and set out for a new one. There were options to be sure, but I did not want them. I wanted my old life back. I would have cried, but I refused to let Ryan see me cry ever again. He looked me in the eye through the slits in my helm, and could see my resolve. He had no power over me anymore. Okay, he said. So what are you going to do now? Take off the MP3 device. Put it in here. I tossed a fabric bag for him to place it in. I still kept the lightsaber close so he would not get any ideas. He carefully took out the earbuds and took off the MP3 player and slid it in the bag. He picked up the bag to toss it to me. Nope, I said. No tossing. Stand back. He set the bag down on his desk and got out of the way. I pulled up my lightsaber and slashed down. One clean swoop would get the MP3 and the computer he had been working at. Unfortunately, I couldn't do it. I jerked the blade sideways. I still got the computer tower, but I couldn't bring myself to swing at the MP3. I tried another attempt, but I couldn't even get it close that time. Damn you. I said to him. The collar must still be affecting me somehow. It wouldn't let me touch it, and wouldn't let me destroy the other device either. Look. I can help. I'll take care of it. Get back. I yelled, furious. I don't want to kill, but I will. You have twisted my mind more ways than I can count, and have left me stranded in a body not my own. I don't want your help, not even if I thought I could trust you. I walked over to the bag. I might not be able to destroy it, but I sure wasn't leaving it with him. It felt heavier than it should be when I picked it up. I did not care. It was time to get moving. Part of me knew I should have stayed and made sure he did not have any other strange devices hidden, but I was just as afraid he would find a way to incapacitate me with some device I missed that he might grab. I chose my poison, and it was getting away right then. Goodbye, Ryan. You are lucky I don't want to be a murderer, else you would be dead right now. If I see you again, I might change my mind on the whole murder thing, so I don't want cross your path again. I picked up the duffel bag and walked out of the house. You only have yourself to blame, you know, for who you are now, he yelled at me from the doorway. She was your dream. Not mine. I shrugged without turning back. It wasn't worth my breath to respond to him. I didn't know where I would go, but I sure the hell was not staying here. Only once I was far away from the house did I let even a single tear fall.